Morning guys, today's video is going to be the October allotment and garden tour, and it's now officially autumn. There is loads to harvest, but there is a lot of jobs to do and the allotment is really overgrown. But luckily today it's really nice weather, so it's a good opportunity to get lots done, and yeah, let's get into it. So guys, before we start the tour, I want to show you what neglect looks like. This is the allotment and I've got a lot of jobs to do. I've got potatoes that need harvesting. They've got some blight and I made a start on it. I got pumpkin vines everywhere which need pulling up and composting. Got comfrey that needs digging out of just about everywhere. It's an absolute weed here. And I've also got some sweet corn that I need to get rid of. But what I want to show quickly before I get into the tour is we all sometimes get a bit overwhelmed with the number of jobs we got, but you just got to chip away at it, and that's what I'm going to show in this video. So before we get into the jobs, I wanted a quick win, and that was harvesting apples. So both apple trees are absolutely chock full of apples, and probably more than I'm going to be able to eat, but it's fine. Just going to leave some for nature. But yeah, the big thing with apples is when you're harvesting them, if they're pristine, no imperfections and things, apples will actually store quite a long time and you can be eating them into the winter. Whereas any apples that have a slight blemish, like apple scab or anything like that, while it's only sort of surface level deep, can introduce rot into the apple. So really important when you're picking them to kind of put them into two sections, ones you can store and ones you think you can use right away. So these ones here are the ones I think I can store. So I'm going to give that a go and yeah, hopefully enjoy apples later into the season. But this was a really nice win when I've got a lot of jobs to take care of. So the first job I thought I'd do is to get rid of this sweet corn. This sweet corn is completely dry and there are a couple cobs I didn't get round to eating, but they are no longer at all fit for eating, very dried out. And yeah, basically I want to use this as a sort of a brown compost material, a sort of brown green compost material. So yeah, I'm going to get into this. So the next job for me is digging out all this comfrey. Comfrey is a perennial weed, or just maybe a perennial to some, but it will just keep growing back. But the problem is now, when the cold weather comes, it will go dormant and I won't know where it was. So I need to dig it out now to make sure it doesn't come back next year. Now the real big problem with that is the roots run very deep. Comfrey is actually a really beneficial plant because it draws up nutrients from deep in the soil. Obviously the leaves then perish and basically bring the nutrients to the topsoil where the sort of rooting zone is for most plants. But it is a weed and it is a bit of a brute, and especially in this compost here, it grows phenomenally well and really overcrowds my sort of vegetables. So I'm going to dig these up, and it's just hard graft. Definitely not perfect, but after giving it a bit of a rake over, pulling out most of the weeds, I've more or less got the bed back. But you look closely, see the evidence of bindweed roots. Now these, even the smallest segment of root, you know, that sort of size, bindweed will grow back from that. So yeah, I gotta have a think about what I'm gonna do about that for next year. But for right now, the bed is put back together, ready for planting. Now before I carry on clearing out the allotment, and one thing I would say on that is, like any job, break it into sections. Breaking it into sections makes it feel a lot more manageable, and you're much more likely to you know, achieve what you set out to do. But one of the best jobs that I absolutely love doing is harvesting potatoes. Now really with potatoes, it's a bit of like a treasure hunt. You sort of dig around and see what you can find, and I think from this plant I dug up earlier this morning, oh hang on, was that something? Oh no, still more coming, see? And this is a variety called Charlotte, and I planted these in July, and these are sort of your Christmas potatoes, but I figured I'd harvest some now just because I can probably make a nice sort of leek and potato soup with these. But I think it's really hard to tell where the plant sort of stops growing, but yeah, I feel like I should have them all. And the thing is, every year I go, oh yeah, probably got them all. And every year I get sort of potato plants popping up in the spring. Now I should have filmed myself harvesting these potatoes because I've had some absolute whoppers in there, and it just goes to show, depending on the conditions, soil and things, the harvest really varies, but this is definitely more than enough for me to make the leek and potato soup that I want to. Just as I was finishing up at the allotment, I found this little guy here, which I totally forgot about, that I left him here to ripen up a bit. He sounds ripe, so he can go in the harvest basket. As it turns out, there are actually 2 more growing inside bushes. So there you have it, guys. It's a lot tidier. I've still got some jobs to do, and I mean, I've got a few more potatoes to harvest, which I'll do another day. Need to sort of sort this bed out a little bit, leaving the leeks in. And then really it's just getting rid of the comfrey. This is where I grew the pumpkins, the black plastic, and what I'll probably do is I'll lift off the black plastic and basically dig them out at the roots. But we've got one bed back to normal, some apples harvested. All that's really left to do here is cut the grass. But before we go over to the garden, I'll just show you how much compost material we got in here. So I've capped it off with some brown material, but you know, this giant bin is almost half full in just, I don't know, an hour or two's work. Now, before we carry on with a vegetable garden tour, I wanted to talk about self-seeders. So I've got some verbena here, and when I look underneath here, there are loads and loads and loads of verbena seedlings. So now is a really good time to pot them up or move them in the garden to where you want them, and you can ensure that next year you've got loads and loads and loads of colour in your garden. Now, here in the vegetable garden on this beautiful sunny day, the garden is looking amazing. I'm very quickly going to go through and just show you sort of what's happening and what we got to look forward to in the winter months. So, starting with the smallest bed, I gave all these strawberries a bit of a trim just to remove any sort of dead growth, and they've sort of put on some new leaves, which is great for now, and they'll be ready to sort of hopefully fruit again next summer. But what I am noticing is all these teeny tiny seedlings here. These are the poached eggplant. Can't remember the full Latin name, but the poached eggplants I had in here. And again, another self-seeder. So hopefully at some point I can dig some of these up and move them around. I've got some lettuce here, which is getting a bit sluggy, and I've got, I think this was a turnip that I had some spare plants. Yeah, I might get a harvest at some point out of those. But yeah, really I just need to sort of add some compost into this bed and get it moving. Now, very quickly here, what I am loving is the different in colour and textures here. So you've got the beautiful red Lola Rosa lettuce, which is going to seed now. You can see these are the flower buds. So those leaves are going to be a bit bitter to eat, and I probably just need to pull them out. I've got the cos lettuce here, a little bit slug damage, but some of them are starting to form a bit of a head, which is great. And let's just see if we've got any carrots we can harvest down here. There were some that were ready, and I harvested them not long ago, but let's have a look. Oh yeah, there we go. Not a bad carrot there, nice and straight, not forked. That's exactly what we like to see. Now, moving along in this bed, I've got under here some beetroot and a cabbage, so I'm just waiting for those to sort of really get their roots underneath. Now, bit of a failure here is the Brussels sprouts. Now, the good sign is the Brussels sprouts are starting to form, which is really good news. However, what is not good news is the number of caterpillars which have made their sort of nest in here. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see them, but there are, you know, signs of caterpillars in there, and they keep eating the new leaves, which is going to make the plant struggle a bit. But the idea was, and what hasn't worked, was that this coriander plant here, which is absolutely massive sort of mound, was meant to flower. The idea was the flowers would attract lots of beneficial insects that would, you know, prey on the caterpillars and things like that, and ensure a good harvest. And finally, on this sort of section, I've got my beautiful self-seeded nasturtium down here, which is sort of having a second wind in this damp autumn. It's even got a few flowers on, and it's just nice to have a bit of greenery in the pathways there, just to sort of soften the sort of hard edges. Now I've got some sweet corn here that was sown a bit later than the stuff in the allotment. So what is brilliant is that I've still got sweet corn, which is good to harvest. Now the plants, they didn't really necessarily all flower at the same time. So the pollination, on these sweet corn cobs hasn't been as good. I mean, it's still a good harvest here, but it sort of, there are sort of gaps in where the corn kernels are forming, and that's just a sign of poor wind pollination. And I'll do a bit of a close-up of this one just so you get an idea of what I'm talking about, but it's almost like it's not a complete cob of corn. What also has happened is some of them have blown over, and I've never really known corn to do this. Normally it's pretty good, but maybe some animal, the dogs maybe, have been up here and knocked into them and stuff. So I'm going to pull a few of them out just to make a bit of room and sort of let these sort of carry on. Now here at the winter bed where I've got sort of leeks, parsnips and potatoes growing, you probably heard me talk about I wanted to make some leek and potato soup. Well, this is the leek that I really want to harvest. It's quite big and sort of fat, and I'm hoping, oh whoops, I should have dug that out a bit, but I'm hoping as I peel back the leaves I'm going to have a really nice, yep, looking pretty good, really nice leek here to enjoy. I've got to peel a few layers off because, a bit like last year, there is something called allium leaf miner, which unfortunately, there's not much prevention for it. I think that's about where it stops, but it basically eats the leek and creates these sort of brown rotten lines going through the leek. So not very edible and not very nice to look at, but the only thing you can really do about it is you could sort of fleece your crops or cover them with an insect mesh to prevent the fly which hatches the larvae from getting into the leeks. But that there I'm really happy with. Now over here at the hoop house bed, things are looking pretty good, which is strange for the hoop house bed. It never does that well. But I've got some little cabbages here, which are sort of getting their roots in and starting to put on some nice new growth. I've got some beetroots, which are stalling a bit. I've got some older beetroots, which are doing okay. And then I've got some older cabbages, which are doing even better. And I have never in my 4 years of gardening ever grown a good cabbage. So maybe this year's my year. I got some nice chard, and then I've even got some pretty good looking turnips growing. And turnips, not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, but you harvest them young and they're not really that bad. I got one cabbage here which just hasn't survived really. I think when it's this bad, where you've almost got like a skeleton, I can see there are some new leaves coming, but I would kind of cut your losses there. I dig this up and I plant something else. I've got some beetroot seedlings I can probably put in place, but it might make a comeback, but it probably won't make a harvest. Something like that, similar position, but I think might pull through and still make a harvest now that the caterpillar season's over. But this one here, yeah, I think you've got to cut your losses. So that there, guys, is the October sort of garden and allotment tour, and I really hope you enjoy it. And it's nice for me to sort of film these things and look back on the sort of successes of the year. So it's really nice to sit here with some leeks, potatoes and things like that. But yeah, all I would say is if you've got a garden that over the summer has become overgrown, or an allotment that has become overgrown, don't be disheartened. I think the big thing is to break it into sections. So if one day you're just going to clear one bed, next day you're going to clear another bed, because as winter rolls in, everything slows down. Nothing really changes. It's almost like 3 months where the garden seems quite static, and I think it's there that you can catch up and get back on top of things. So yeah, really hope you enjoy this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all soon for more videos.